Welcome to Buckeyes Tomorrow Morning for Saturday, April 12th. I'm your host, Tom Orr. The Texas game in 140 days, the game against Michigan in 231 days. If you're planning your next event, make it unforgettable with Grateful Griddle, Columbus's favorite food truck, serving up smash burgers, gourmet sandwiches, and good vibes. Book your catering today at gratefulgriddleoh.com. I'm joined by Tony Gerdeman of BuckeyeHuddle.com. Tony, the spring game obviously coming up on Saturday inside Ohio Stadium. Friday, we got a chance to watch the Buckeyes practice, their final pre-spring game practice inside Ohio Stadium. Again, I feel like we're contractually obligated to start with the quarterbacks, so we will start with the quarterbacks. I feel like we got so much more out of this practice than we did out of the student appreciation practice, where you got to see a bunch, but this was like just they ran a lot more stuff, and you just frankly there were fewer people standing in the way, so all of that sort of helped. I think my big takeaway on the quarterbacks is I don't think there's anyone who's ready to start for Ohio State and get Ohio State to where Ohio State wants to be right now.
Yeah, and it's something that we've been saying. So, Tom, is no news bad news? News is still early news. There's still a lot of work to be done. I think the encouraging thing is Ryan Day and Brian Hartline have said this week that they're not concerned about the quarterback situation. They've got enough here to get ready for the season. But it is interesting where the last Student Appreciation Day, maybe it was Lincoln Kienholz. Today, it was like sometimes Lincoln's good, sometimes he throws a bad pass. Sometimes Julian's good, sometimes he throws a bad pass. Same with Tavien St. Clair, who we could talk about as well. But an up and down day for the most part. It was pretty chilly. We can say that. And you know, Ohio's not where you play cold weather football, so this is something new for them. But yeah, the consistency is going to be a thing that they're searching for well into probably November.
And it feels like, to your point, and to I think the idea from Ryan Day and Brian Hartline, you can tell these guys can make the plays, these guys can make the throws. It's just, as you said, the consistency where there were stretches of practice that I thought Lincoln Kienholz is definitely having the best day of anyone here of the quarterbacks, and he made some really nice throws. He probably had to throw the day. Had a really nice sort of Mylan Graham in the back corner of the end zone. Aaron Scott had some pretty good coverage, and Mylan Graham made a nice play, and we'll talk about him probably a little later on. But then Lincoln Kienholz threw a pick six to Jermaine Matthews, who also had a pretty good day. We'll talk about him a little bit later on. You're seeing just like, the mistake, and Brian Dale talked about just you need to be reliable. You need to be able to make the routine plays routinely, and you need to not make the big mistake. And you're still sort of seeing the big mistake in one form or another from several of these guys. Julian Sayin at one point had back-to-back plays where he was trying to hand the ball off, and the exchange was bad, and the ball ended up on the ground, and then he's running laps because punishment laps. It's just, you can tell it's there in these guys, and it's just the development has to continue. And I think it's probably worth mentioning, this is what it looks like at this point of the spring a lot of years.
Yeah, practice number 14, and this is no different. We were talking while we were watching this about Justin Fields and his spring game of being like 4 for 13 or 4 for 11 or whatever, and not looking like the near All-American he became. But it's early. It's the offensive line changes depending on who you are. You may be with the twos, you may be with the threes. So you're getting the twos and threes on the offensive line and the receivers. So the routes are maybe a little bit different for different guys, for different quarterbacks. So the coaches are grading on where the ball is supposed to go. And if it goes there, great. If it doesn't get caught, that's not really what they're looking for all the time. It's like, are you making the right reads? Are your feet right? Are your eyes right? Those are the things. So even if it's to us like, well, that throw was behind him or that throw was ahead of him, maybe it's not because it went to the right spot, but it's still incomplete. But there were some throws. Accuracy overall, I thought today was kind of missing at points. There were some throws that were behind receivers, as we saw. Not much stuff going downfield, but there was one play where I think Jeremiah Smith beat his corner immediately and was open, but he wasn't open because Malik Hartford was drifting back to cover the deep shot. So you get by one guy, and then the safeties are there. So the downfield stuff hasn't necessarily been there outside. We saw a little bit, maybe down the middle over the past week or so, but overall, the accuracy, and it wasn't the windiest day, but it was maybe a little breezy. But this is no different than what you're going to see.
Yeah, to me it was more the temperature than the wind, but the wind probably contributing to the temperature more than it did to the flight of the ball. It was, it was chilly. This was not quite as cold as the Tennessee game, but this is colder than you're going to have for virtually any game at on the Ohio State schedule. So does that play a factor? Yeah, maybe. And they've been inside the facility most of the spring, so you're probably not used to this to a certain degree. So yeah, and how much of that is just sort of coming up with a reason that it didn't look great. Yeah, I mean,
they need more experience.
Yeah,
they need more live reps, and they'll get better as the games go on, and they'll get better as the practices go on. But then they'll really, take that next step once they have the live reps in game, which it'll be interesting to see how many they can play early on. Not in the first game, or maybe in the first game.
Yeah,
if things go perfectly for them, but. You're going to want to get everybody some actual game reps as you can this year.
And Tavien St. Clair is going to need some actual game reps this year as well, because if you're the third string quarterback, you got to be ready. You've got to be as ready as you can be. He's, he looks like a true freshman. He looks like a very talented true freshman, which there's a reason for that. It's because he's a very talented true freshman. He has come light years from where he was at the start of the spring. He's still a long way from where he would need to be a serious contender for the starting job. That's not, I think this is still very much a two-man race. But he also, you can start to see it a little bit with him again. We said that again last week during the student appreciation practice. You can see it. You're seeing some throws. There's mistakes. My mechanics are bad on that one. You can see him going through mechanical stuff after certain reps. But you can also see he had, I think, one of the nicest throws of the day. It was downfield to Max Clair. There was a shot way down the middle, kind of going right to left in front of us, and he just put it right in there. He had some nice throws, had some touchdowns. He's got the threes, and he's going against the threes, and there's a lot of sort of walk-on guys on that third team defense. So, it would be a big step up to the first team defense. But you're seeing enough progress from him that it's okay, based on the trajectory, you can sort of plot out the line, and it gets you to this guy is probably going to be playable at some point this year, at least in, fourth quarter of blowout kind of games.
Yeah. I don't think the game is obviously moving quickly and moving fast for him. I don't think it's moving too fast. Where last year, compare him to Aaron Noland, true freshman, early enrollee, the game was just moving too fast for him. So you'd see him when he's out there, normally he's just going to dump it off. And Tavien, he'll keep stuff alive and then go looking. He's looking for receivers as he's running for his life. So it'll be interesting to see when does he hit the wall.
Yeah.
Because things are nice and easy until they aren't, and you start to be pushed more onto you, more of the offense onto you. And with him, and being that third guy, they can't put him on scout team, because he needs to be part of the offense. And I think they're going to have to really continue. They will continue to invest in him. I think they're going to continue to get more out of him.
Yeah, you can see where this is going, and it's not there yet. But this is definitely someone where you can look and go, yeah, he's going to be fine with more reps. And all three of these guys just need more reps, need more experience, and it's just keep stacking days, as they say. Running backs, I think my big takeaway among the running backs today was, Bo Jackson's going to be pretty good, and he might be pretty good pretty soon. To me, the biggest thing with him is just a lot of the stuff we haven't seen. How is his blitz pickup? All the stuff that coaches say and fans are but if he can run like that, why does it matter? It's well, because it matters. But man, Bo Jackson sure seems like he's closer to being the second running back than anywhere below the third.
Right. Yeah. I would agree with that. And that's not to say he's the backup, but like you said, he's certainly closer there. And you see him able to get through the tackles, able to find, just be patient enough and find the hole. But I'm with you. I would like to see what does he do with the blitz pickup, because back in 2002, that was one of the things that Maurice Clarett excelled at, right away. Yes, he was the best running back on the team, but he was also able to do that. And we saw how effective Travion Henderson was with it last year, and how important it was, because if he couldn't do that last year, Ohio State's probably not winning a national championship with his skill set and doing that. So everybody has seen the importance of it, and And maybe that's a Carlos Loughlin thing, where we're doing this, and so you're going to get better at it. You really have no choice. But it's a lot to ask of a true freshman. But what they've asked of him so far, he looks like he's capable of doing.
Yeah, and I'm always a little cautious about trying to evaluate running backs during situations like this, where in most cases you're not getting taken to the ground, and it's like, well, boy, if he can just break 6 tackles like that in a game, boy, you're really going to be onto something. But you're also just sort of seeing like all the stuff. He's doing stuff that other guys are not doing. So that I think is someone to watch.
And stuff that other guys that we've seen do very well have done.
Yes, have done. Yeah.
There's that. We've seen it before.
Yeah, at this point, you're just the measuring stick is not necessary. Sometimes it's the other guys out there. Sometimes it's, well, I remember what it looked like when fill in the blank was here multiple years ago in the same constraints, and this looks better, worse, the same, whatever it is. So on to wide receivers. Quincy Porter was in a yellow limited contact thing. He was practicing. He was out there for some stuff. He was not out there for other stuff. We'll see what that means for his participation in the spring game. He may just be out there for the thud stuff. We'll see what that all means. So we didn't see a ton from him. I was very impressed with Mylan Graham. He felt like you're starting to see, okay, he had the pedigree coming out of high school, and you're starting to see, okay, it's starting to show up on the field.
Yeah, and I think the most impressive play was Lincoln Kienholz throwing a touchdown pass to him in the red zone, went up and caught it over Aaron Scott. And I think that's the thing that was a question. Can he do that? Because you get him in space, he's fantastic. You would assume he is. And he can move, and he's fast, and he's got all this quickness. How physical can he be? And he was physical and went up and caught that touchdown pass. So that's a very good sign for all of the things he can do. Because if he can do that, we know he can do the other stuff. So I'm continue to be impressed. He's had a very good spring, and it's not because he's doing what Jeremiah Smith did last year. It's just like you see him making catches. He's moving the chains. He's catching stuff over the middle. He's catching stuff on the sidelines. He's catching basically whatever gets thrown his way and picking up yards. And you just the routine things routinely doesn't just go for quarterbacks. You're seeing it from him as well. And a redshirt freshman going through his first spring, I know he's looking forward to the spring game. He said so. So see what he can do on Saturday.
And just sort of thinking through the other wide receivers, Carnell Tate continues to look very solid. Jeremiah Smith is Jeremiah Smith. And maybe Brandon Innes was the other guy who jumped out to me a little bit. Just feels like this is someone whose time has come.
Yeah, and he's excited about his opportunity, and the quarterbacks are looking for him. Mm-hmm. So that happens a lot in the slot in the spring and fall camp, and then during the season, as we know. And I want to see. I'm just looking forward to eventually seeing where do they use him most. Because if it's just like 10 yards per catch kind of guy, where we're going to throw some quick screens and things like that, I don't think you're using him to his full potential. And I think generally around here they do get the most out of their receivers. So yeah, and today. And last week as well, you saw him more outside as well. Yeah. He's not just in the slot; he's outside as well, which they want to continue to round out his games. He doesn't have to come off the field when they want to put Jeremiah or Carnell in the slot.
And that's something where you see that on offense and on defense, because like Jermaine Matthews, for example, we've seen him in the slot or in the nickel, which is kind of covering the slot on defense when he typically is outside. And this is something that you've seen a bunch over the years. They would put Marvin Harrison in the slot. They put Emeka Egbuka outside. They put, move Jeremiah Smith around a bunch. Because, Jeremiah Smith, if you put him in the slot and he's covered by a safety or a linebacker, he can create mismatches. That would be a good way to create some mismatches and really force the defense maybe get away from what they want to do. So that's wide receivers. Tight ends, I think the big notable thing was Will Kasmerick was there. We had not seen him at the student appreciation practice, and we didn't see him at this practice. And then sort of towards the end, he came out on a knee scooter with a boot on. So I would at least call him questionable for the spring game. Probably out. We'll see, how much that impacts potentially the season. There's a long way to go till the season. So you would hopefully that's something that's a relatively minor thing that can can get healed with the 4 months or so before there's a real game here. But that's we had not seen a lot of him. Max Clair does feel like he's sort of moved up the pecking order. Like he was sort of repping at the back of the line in the spring, and then as we sort of expected, he's moved up and up and up, and then all of a sudden, ta-da! He was with the ones with a decent amount on Friday.
And with this tight end group, you're going to have other guys with the ones as well. And we saw Bennett Christian there. We saw Jelani Thurman there. So they got some guys. They had a good day. All of the tight ends had a good day. Even Nate Roberts had a good day. Max LeBlanc getting in some action. So I say the tight ends had a good day. Maybe the linebackers not such a great day in coverage of those guys. But yeah, they're so deep there. That might be the deepest position group in the country.
Yeah,
and they were missing a starter.
Yeah, right. Offensive line, the line, we've kind of, I feel like you're sort of getting a sense for what that starting offensive line might look like at this point. We came into the spring really wondering about that right tackle spot. And I think, if I had to guess right now who the starter is at right tackle, I feel like I know who the answer would be, at least right now. And it's still just a guess, and there's still time for that to change. But I think you and I are probably on the same page there in terms of who might be that starting right tackle against Texas.
Right, and we'll tell you guys who that is against Texas. So the defensive line.
Look at that. Austin Searveld. Yes. There's Austin Searveld. He was repping with the ones a bunch at right tackle, not exclusively, but they're still shuffling guys around. But it just sort of feels like he's maybe going to be one of the best five, and if you're one of the best five, you're going to be out there somewhere. And he is, he's flexible enough they can slot him in a couple different positions. And Ryan Day, we talked about this last year before the Penn State game when it was like, why are they going to put, why do you think they're going to put Carson Henson out there? It's like, well, because Ryan Day is going to default to who are the veteran, the trusted veterans who I know can do it. You've seen Austin Searveld play at the highest level of his sport in terms of the national championship game and the college football playoff. It just feels like if he feels like Austin Searveld is close to one of the top five guys, he's going to be one of the guys, and that just it feels like you're sort of seeing that maybe start to come together.
Yeah, I would agree with that. And when you're looking for your top five and you've got a guy that can play four spots, he's kind of worked his way in. It's like when your dad is the VP or the executive, like, I'm going to be okay. Like, I'm going to find a spot here. I'm very, very versatile. I can do a lot of things. I can do mailroom. I can do, executive stuff. And that's what he can do. Like, whatever you need from Austin Searveld, he can do it. He's not a Nepo baby. He's a real baby. He's a real, but he's versatile, and then he's effective. And it's not just, that's great. He can play four spots. Can you do him well enough to start? We know he's done the guard well enough to start. I think with enough time to tackle, he'll probably, right now, it's him, it's Ian Moore, or it's Phillip Daniels. And we've seen him way more. And we've seen Ian Moore with the ones at both left and right while they're doing all of this rotating. But I'm with you. I think it's Austin Searveld at this point.
And the rest of the offensive line, best guess right now, left tackle Ethan Onyanwa, left guard Luke Montgomery, center Carson Hinsman, right guard Tager Shabola, right tackle Austin Searveld. Again, there's plenty of time for us to be wrong on this. This is nothing is finalized, nothing is in stone. But the classic. Well, if the season started today, that's probably what I would see happening there. Anything else on the offensive side of the ball before we move over to defense?
No, you should do. No, I'll say no, and then I'll talk to you off air.
Sounds like a great. We're not going to do our editorial meetings on air like we always do. No, okay. Well, we can break from tradition. That's fine. On the defensive side of the ball, defensive line seemed like they were perfectly fine. Everyone always wants to know what C.J. Hicks is doing. C.J. Hicks still rushing off the edge. To me, I think there were two big takeaways on the interior of the defensive line. Number one, the starting interior of the defensive line is going to be really good. We were talking to someone who pointed out at one point there was a play where Edric Houston was getting blocked on one far side of the field, and then went all the way across the field to kind of run a play down on the far side of the field. He can really move, just so athletic. So that's the first team defensive tackles. I feel like they're going to be very, very good. After that, I thought, boy, I bet they'll find an answer this spring, and I still don't know if they found an answer in there in terms of depth.
Yeah, I mean, and they're moving guys around. They're trying to find a third and a fourth tackle. We saw Jason Moore and Will Smith. I've seen Will Smith now a couple times with the ones. Jason Moore, Eric Mensah in there. I saw Jarquez Carter in there a little bit. Just not with the ones, but in terms of trying to find something. And I say trying to find something because I'm convinced they are, they're trying to find their third and their fourth. And I don't know that it's there. And so if you don't have a third and a fourth, your one and your two are going to be tired in the third and the fourth. So they've got to figure that out. And if we keep saying that the portal is maybe the answer, but the portal is going to be where everybody's going in here in a week. So good luck battling all of the other shoppers out there. So you would hope that you can find something here. Ryan Day was like, people need to step up. This Monday when we talked to him, like, those guys need to step up. Matt Patricia told him, prove to us why you're here. Like, you're here for a reason. Prove it. So like, they're being challenged, and really challenging them like this in the last week. I don't know that it's enough to convince them that, okay, we've got the guys that we need.
Right. It feels like, they always talk about grading over the course of the spring, and you have all these reps, you get 15 practices. The spring game is the only time the fans are going to get a chance to watch and see. And if you have a good day in the spring game, great, that's fantastic. And there's going to be a tendency for people to go, well, I bet that's what it looked like all spring. And, even that is, well, you need someone to actually have a good day against, in the spring game. The coaches are evaluating over a long enough period of time. You can tell, like, this is a point where it's like, okay, this is like, capital O, capital A, capital C, officially a concern. Yeah. And I would be very surprised if they were not actively pursuing someone in the transfer portal. But at this point, as you said, there are a lot of people that need another interior defensive lineman, and there are probably a lot of other good teams that need a good interior defensive lineman. So yeah, there's a lot of stuff Ohio State can offer that Purdue or Illinois can't match, but Texas probably would not mind another interior, or Georgia or whoever else, other teams kind of towards the top of the sport. So yeah, that's going to be you're shopping for a reliever at the trade deadline. It's like, well, you're probably going to pay a little more than the reliever is really worth in terms of trade, and so that's going to be that is not the easiest spot to fill, but I get the sense they're going to have to do something to add and give themselves a few more options.
Yeah. What kind of prospects do you have that you're willing to give up? What does Baseball America say about your true freshman? But then you're looking for somebody, and you're saying, look, we need somebody for the rotation, and that guy's like, rotation? Yeah, I'm a starter.
Yeah.
It's like, well, we have co-starters. We can do the co-starter thing. So then you've got to start selling that part of it.
Yeah, and you're at the spot where you're coming in, and this will be Caden McDonald's second year, right? Third year for Caden McDonald, second year for Edric Houston. So, theoretically, you might be missing Caden McDonald a year from now, and then, boy, you really need to. And I think they brought in a big defensive line class this year, so there's probably someone in that group that you could. Jarquez Carter is probably a name you're going to be hearing more a year from now, but that doesn't necessarily help you this year. Linebackers were fine. I mean, I have one of the conversations we had inside was, it's kind of hard to evaluate the linebackers when you're not tackling to the ground. It's like, well, boy, these running backs keep running past them. It's like, well, but they're right there, so they probably would have not run past them if they were. But this is a difficult time to evaluate linebackers. Based on what we've seen this spring, I have no real concerns here. It feels like you've got a pretty good sense for who your starters are, who the third guy is. Feels like they're feeling pretty good about all three of those guys. Of course, that would be Arvell Reese, Sonny Styles starting, and Peyton Pierce, kind of the third guy in there. Gabe Stover is someone who's missed some time this spring, so he's probably a little further behind. Corners, talked about Jermaine Matthews earlier. He had broadly a very good day. You're going to give up some completions, but he continues to be someone. He had a pick six. He had another one where he jumped an out route and got his hand on the ball and, one step quicker, and it is a pick six. He continues to be someone who looks very good. They move him inside, outside. I'm looking at him and going, boy, he's probably going to be a pretty solid player who you hear a lot about on broadcast this fall.
Well, and we were talking earlier off air, like the quarterbacks keep throwing at him, and is that because they're not throwing at Davison Igbinosun? And the thing is, if you want to keep throwing at Jermaine Matthews, he's going to go get the ball.
Yeah.
Whether he's knocking it down or catching it, he's caught. I wonder how many interceptions he's had this spring, because we've seen the last 2 practices and he's had 2 in those, and he's just around the ball. He's quick. He jumps routes. He triggers well, and he's fun to watch. And they'll tell you about it as well, which is also good. I don't think they were throwing flags today, because there was one play where he was pretty physical, and then he was talking to the ref. Was like, "Was I okay?" And the ref was like, he was saying a lot of words, so I don't think he was okay. And then like a couple plays after his pick 6, which gets blown dead immediately. So it's like there would have been nobody there to stop him. So it's still a pick 6. But he was defending Carnell Tate on a fade into the end zone, and he was all over him. Mm-hmm. So like even Jermaine Matthews, we're talking about how good he's been. He's still a little handsy at times. But when you're going against some physical receivers, it calls for it.
Yeah. You pointed out the Davison Igbinosun thing, and I was like, man, I hadn't noticed him all day. And it's when you don't notice a corner all day, sometimes that's like, I didn't notice the long snapper all day. It's like, no, that's a good thing. We really haven't seen him get thrown at a lot.
Saw it a lot last year.
You sure did. And, I wonder what that... Now, as soon as you pointed that out, I was like, now I wish I could go back and watch the film of practice and what was he doing on all these plays. If and there's a lot of, I'm going to put if in all caps and bold and italicized. If
I do it in wingdings.
If he has done taken that kind of a step, boy, that kind of changes what this defense is, because I feel like at this point, like Jermaine Matthews is going to be a good to very good and potentially great player on the outside on one side. If you have Davison Igbinosun at least as good, if not better than that, and you have Caleb Downs behind him, and we'll talk about who might be next to Caleb Downs behind him, boy, oh boy, that's a real intriguing defense.
Yeah, where you got equal parts of physicality and also playmaking, and you can do some different things with them. So, yeah, I mean, he's not been invisible, but it's like you could go an entire practice and not talk about it. Last year, it was like, oh, did you see when IGB and Jeremiah were going at it, and they were talking like this. It's like, now it's like, and it's not just because he's on the other side of the field. They're just not throwing at him.
Yeah, that's really interesting. That's now something I'm going to really be watching in that spring game on Saturday.
He's going to get lit up.
Yeah, maybe. I mean, all through practice, I thought, okay, here's going to be the narrative coming out of this practice. And then I was like, oh, nope. The guy who did something really good earlier, I was like, man, I was ready to gas this dude up. Just, oh, man, that was a bad decision. Or, oh, boy, this guy's having a rough day. It's like, oh, nope, big play the other. There's so many reps. It's so many more reps than a normal game that it's like you can construct multiple games with a narrative during just one practice. So, and this wasn't even like they were just running 7-on-7 or 11-on-11 the whole practice. There was a bunch of individuals. So this is like half of a practice, and you're still getting so many more reps. The depth at corner, Bryce West in the slot, Aaron Scott, Devin Sanchez outside for the most part. And you saw guys moving around a little bit, but Aaron Scott was a guy who he had a couple times. There's once when he was in coverage on Jeremiah Smith going down the sideline, and it was just, he was step for step with Jeremiah Smith, and it was like, that, that shows me something that you're, it's one rep. How much does it mean? But it's like, okay, he was pretty solid all throughout the day. He was the one who was in coverage on the Mylan Graham touchdown, but he was, it was a great play because he was good coverage. Right. Aaron Scott feels like he's really, he's kind of taken that next step. And then Devin Sanchez, true freshman, he's still, he is still probably the fourth corner right now outside to me. But again, you're seeing, it's sort of a lesser version of the Tavien St. Clair thing, where Tavien St. Clair at the beginning of spring looked like completely like, he had a longer way to go to get to where he is. Devin Sanchez came in probably a little more ready to play. Right. And that's more of a thing with the position he plays rather than anything else, I would guess. but he's looked not out of place as a true freshman. And as a true freshman in your first spring, if you look not out of place, that tells me, okay, there's a possibility that you look ready to play by the time the fall rolls around.
Yeah, and you see him after plays going in and getting feedback from whether it's teammates or coaches. So like he wants to get better after each play. Aaron Scott, he absolutely wants to play. He was upset he didn't play last year. He understands why he didn't, but he doesn't want to do that 2 years in a row. So he's going to be amped. And so I think it's not a deep group, but the guys they have, like the talent quality is very, very high. Quality over quantity, I would say, is what they have here right now. And they'll get another guy, Jordan Woods, in the summer. But again, the story when you're, as we all know, when you're a June enrollee, we'll see you next year.
Yeah, this time next year we'll be talking to you about Jordan Woods. But yeah, that's if you come in the summer. Even if you are, the whole reason we didn't talk about Mylan Graham much last year was came in the summer. And so that's just, you really kind of put yourself behind the 8 ball. And you sort of have to almost write off that first year if you are a junior enrollee, almost regardless of who you are. Safety, kind of the last spot we need to talk about before we get to special teams. Caleb Downs, you know what you got with Caleb Downs. Jalen McClain, Malik Hartford. It felt like when Caleb Downs was out there, you saw more of one guy than another, which kind of maybe gives you a sense for where those two guys might be in terms of a pecking order right now.
Yeah, you saw Malik Hartford more paired up with Caleb Downs, and that's been the case from all spring, basically, since we've seen them. So if you want to talk about the ones right now, then it's Caleb Downs. And the thing is, Caleb Downs and Malik Hartford, and they continue to slide back and forth in terms of free safety and strong safety. So, that's the way things are leaning. I think Jalen McClain is still going to play this year.
Oh, yeah.
Whoever the third guy is, they're going to play this year. So I think they're also going to look for ways to play them all together. How does that, what does that look like? Lorenzo Stiles in the nickel had a good day today again. He had some good coverage on Jeremiah Smith. He's had a strong spring. I know he's still got to prove some things. He's got doubters, and this is his last year. So living up to following Jordan Hancock is a tall order.
Yeah.
That's a tough ask, but we'll see what they can do.
And at the nickel right now, it feels like the pecking order is Lorenzo Stiles and then Bryce West and then Miles Lockhart, probably in that order. So that's sort of where things stand in the secondary. And then ending up with special teams, the punting is still inconsistent. It's just you get some, Nick McLarty, for example, he would get an absolute cannon shot where the returner's backing up and it's over his head, and then the next one's not, he doesn't get the hang time. It's a line drive or whatever.
One of them was a knuckleball.
Yeah, you got some weird trajectories in the air. So the punting, I don't know that the punting has been solved yet. You can look at one kick and go, oh man, they really have something here, and then the next one's like, maybe. Kicking though, this was the most we've gotten to see Jaden Fielding all spring, and he was up to the task.
Yeah, he was. He was good early on, and then to close practice, maybe the most pressure we've seen, which is he started off 27, 28 yard field goal, and then you move 5 yards back, and then once they got to the 43 yard field goal, it was, if he misses, everybody on the team is doing 10 up downs. Drilled it. And then 5 more yards, it's 48 yards. If he misses this, it's 20 up downs for the entire team, and he drilled that. So both times the team is celebrating, surrounding him and celebrating. But how do you put pressure on the kicker? And how do you put in a game type of atmosphere? Well, you can't bring in 100,000 people, but you can have 100 sets of eyes, like, you better make this kick. I'm tired. I want to go eat. I want to do this. And he drilled both of them.
Yeah, and both of them were basically straight down the middle, and the one from 48 looked like it would have been good from 54, 55. There was plenty of extra leg there. So, that certainly is encouraging, because he said, he sort of talked about the fact he might have been a little banged up towards the in the back half of last season. So maybe reason for some optimism there as well. But that was a solid performance from him. So I think we've kind of covered all the big stuff from this final Friday practice before Saturday's spring game. we will, of course, be back here on Saturday for the spring game. We'll have some pregame coverage. We'll have some postgame coverage. I think we're aiming for potentially a live show 9-ish. We'll put something out on social media as well as on the Buckeye Huddle message board. And have a little bit of a pregame show, previewing the day, answering your questions, and we'll have some post-game coverage for you as well. We'll try and get the Ryan Day press conference and all that kind of stuff, and then have our usual live post-game Buckeye Weekly podcast, doing some instant reaction to the spring game, what we learned, questions that are still remaining, guys who were maybe positive surprises, areas of concern, all that kind of stuff. So we'll have all of that for you on Saturday at BuckeyeHuddle.com and YouTube.com/BuckeyeHuddle. We hope to see you in both of those places. That will do it for today. Thank you guys all for joining us. Have a great day. We'll talk to you tomorrow.